is when you get older. I would watch back in the day. This time of year was always like not difficult, but you're like, okay, like every night there's a Kings or Lakers game on. So you'd always watch those. And now it comes to the point like those are the only teams that I watch. I would love to watch wall-to-wall hockey. Playoff hockey is amazing. I mean, not if you're a Blackhawks fan, but it's playoff hockey is amazing. NBA basketball playoffs are like whatever, but playoff hockey is awesome. The only thing is like, I don't have time for that. Like people are hitting me up right now and they're like, hey, can you come on? I'm like, I can't. Like I got so many, like I've got kids, got soccer practice. I'm watching my boy right now. My boy is running around a fictional baseball diamond out there doing a walk-off grand slam. His thing is always walk-off grand slam, which we almost saw on Sunday when we were at the Angels game. It's incredible. But listen, the NFL draft is coming up. We got so much great things to talk about. So enough about this, Sammy. Let's just start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
It's Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It's Wednesday night. You know what that means? It is time for Take It to the Rank here on the eve of the draft. So exciting. So many things going on. Now, obviously, tonight, AEW's on. The Tape Never Lies Network will be on in about 90 minutes. And then we're done with the Challenge All-Stars. Congratulations to Adam and Steve. Adam and Steve. Oh, you know, there's politicians out there being like, we don't want Adam and Steve to win. So that was cool. That was a cool finish. By the way, let me know if anybody's watching Endor, let me know if it was good last night. Because I watched the first episode and I watched about 10 minutes of the second one. And I'm like, is this good? Is this a good show? Am I enjoying this? I don't know. Let me know if I am or not. In any event, let's talk about the draft. Because we go out there and we love the speculation. And now it's ramping up over time. Obviously, it feels to me, and I put out a poll on my Instagram page, everybody wants Ashton Jeanty. I think that we've now come to the conclusion that that's who we want. We want Ashton Jeanty. Not we, but I mean like as the collective fan base. Whenever you put a thing out, like, and maybe it was because it was Ashton Jeanty and Tyler Warren. I think most people would prefer Ashton Jeanty. But is Ashton Jeanty now like the name? Is that what everybody thinks? Well, you know what? Our co-host, he's not a guest, he's our co-host. He's been changing the tide over the last couple of weeks. His microphone was not working in the green room. We're going to try to bring him on right now. So Sammy, if you can bring on our our co-host, Jesus, CHGO. I hear you laughing, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
You know what, Greg, I wish I could show you. My boy is just out there running. Like he loves baseball so much. He's out there running. He was thrilled last night. So as everybody knows, we're big Angel fans here. But my family also hates the Dodgers. So they were rooting for the Cubs last night. Does it feel like I know we're going to talk about the Bears, but does it feel like there's a lot of magic around this Cubs team? Because it's been incredible to watch.
Yeah, I mean, when they're going good or they have a special season, more times than not, you see games like this. I saw somebody tweet, they're like, I don't watch the Cubs all the time, but is every game always a complete chaos? When the Cubs are good, the answer is yes. Even when they won the World Series, everybody can remember the infamous Game 7. That is right. How Cubs games go. But you're right. I mean, so far to the season, 15-10 on the year. You have the toughest strength of schedule by a long wide.
They played the Dodgers like 30 times.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're in our division. It's ridiculous. But they've had the toughest strength of schedule by a wide margin. They're 15-10 through the gauntlet, and they have the best run differential in baseball. So, that concludes the baseball conversation on my end. But I am liking what I'm seeing. Knock on wood, and they need to extend Kyle Tucker. He's the best player the Cubs have had since Chris Bryant.
Yeah, I know they traded a highly regarded prospect to the Astros who's going to end up tormenting the Angels for decades. But you know what? It looks like if they can extend Kyle Tucker, it feels like a pretty good move. I'm still bummed that they're not on WGN like they used to be back in the day, because it used to be so much fun. But great to see the Cubs doing well. But let's talk about the Chicago Bears and something I wanted to talk to you about. Now, I was on the Marquee Sports Network yesterday talking with our old friend Carmen Vitale. Scotty Bear was on there.
Yep.
And so we were talking about best fits for the draft. And I'm like, listen to me. You talked me into being trench drunk. Carmen Vitale is notoriously trench drunk, but now the tides are changing. Carmen says we should draft Tyler Warren. You have now led the bandwagon for Ashton Jeanty. What is the cause for this pivot?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably because I'm an idiot and I have no consistency. And this is probably the reason why every time I say I'm going to quit Taco Bell, I end up in the drive-thru at 11 o'clock at night ordering $28 worth of or cheesy gordita crunches. And it's because I have no discipline. I said all offseason that I was going to stick to this plan. Corey Wooten is a very large person. He can literally pop your head off with his bicep. And he has been threatening me that if I did this, that's exactly what he's going to do. And yet here we are a day before the draft. And all like the last 4 days I wake up, the first thing I'm thinking about is Ashton Jeanty. And that's a sickness. It's a sickness I have just like when I'm in the drive-thru at Taco Bell. It's the same sickness I have that every year I say, I'm not going to overhype the team. I'm not going to overhype the team. I'm doing the same thing this year. And then by the time training camp hits, I completely lose my mind. Adam, I have no discipline. I want Ashton Jeanty on the Bears. I wanted him at 10, but now that it seems like we have to trade up for him, I still want to trade up for him because I've been thinking about it for a week, and now by any means necessary, so I can take this visualization and turn it into a reality.
Yeah, it's good to know that because the schedule release is going to be the next tentpole event that comes out from the NFL's end. Now, obviously, there'll be the rookie premiere and all these other things going on, but for the NFL, and I know how our programming works, the NFL schedule release is the next big tent event. We'll break it out, and then I'm happy to find out that you're also going to be on board with me. Like, how do we not win 12 games? How do we not? And I know that you want to preach this discipline. But it also is something about getting into the moment. It's kind of like going to a wedding and being like, I'm going to start off with one highball and then maybe a couple of light beers, and that's it. And then you get to the wedding and you're like, when's my friend going to get married? Like, this is something that happens maybe once, twice, 3 times in a lifetime. Let's enjoy ourselves. Why are we limiting ourselves to this kind of thing? And I think it's a very, very similar sentiment with the Bears, especially as the draft class goes out longer. Because had we done this, I think everybody would have maintained their discipline if the draft happened in March. If we had the draft on March 10th, we would have been like, we're here. But now that it's like April 23rd or whatever, you're losing your mind because we have gone through the chessboard so many times. Like, what if we did this? Like, well, this makes a lot of sense. That's like when you go to like Ross Dress for Less. Oh, thank you, Chubbs82. Thank you so much. Thank you, by the way, for chiming in here. Appreciate you. I want to get to this, Chubbs. I'm not going to forget you. I'm with you. That's exactly what I want to talk about. But I think it's like when you're at Ross Dress for Less or Marshall's or any of those places, the longer you stay in those places, the more impulsive purchases come out of you because you talk yourself into things more often than you're like, I don't really need this $3 t-shirt, which again, you walk out with at some point. So I feel like that's going to be the thing.
You go to Costco because you're going for the deals. Yeah. And then you end up spending twice as much as you would at a normal place because you think that there's great deals everywhere and you're never going to have this opportunity again. And of course, we have to get this, build your own bar and put it in your backyard. It's here. I mean, you're not going to get this price anywhere else. And so that's exactly where I'm at right now. So, I mean, for me with Ashton Jeanty, it does make a lot of sense on a lot of different levels. And you're right. If it was before free agency, it wouldn't make sense. But the Bears have bolstered their offensive line. And you can still get trench drunk in the second round as long as you don't give up both of those picks. And that'd be the one thing I would say, like, don't trade up if it means you have to give up both of your second round picks. If it's only one, so be it. And then you can still get some kind of left tackle prospect, maybe like an Ariante Ursary from Minnesota, somebody like that along those lines. And so, I have opened my mind to this because everybody wants to talk about next year or protecting yourself for the next 5 years. The most important year is right now. And I could make an argument that the next 2 years are maybe arguably the most important years in Bears franchise history, because they have to make sure that Caleb Williams becomes the quarterback that they drafted, that they wanted when they drafted him. And, 1 year in, it wasn't a great year, and a lot of that stuff wasn't his fault from coaching staff and an offensive line perspective. But now you bring in Ben Johnson for $13.5 million. You bring in an offensive line, and you could potentially bring in a premier running back to a coach that gets downhill running effectiveness at a high level. And now all of a sudden you are protecting your quarterback by surrounding himself with things that can take some of the responsibility off his plate. Caleb Williams' development is all that matters for this organization for the next 2 years, because you got to make sure he becomes that guy before you have to pay him. And so anything you can do to create that scenario, you got to make sure you get done. So you can't worry about next year's problems. You got to worry about this year and making sure that Caleb Williams does become that guy. And maybe Ashton Jeanty is exactly who, can be that guy to help Caleb get to that point. And I'd hear some fans go, oh, how's a running back going to help a quarterback's development? Well, like I said, taking some of that responsibility away from him, and now you get to run the ball. Look at the Eagles. Everybody wants to point to their defense and how they won a Super Bowl, but look at how they won on offense and got to the Super Bowl. That was with a run game that was the best in football and a passing offense that was ranked 29th in the NFL. So, and a quarterback that can make plays and a couple receivers that can go up and get it. So maybe you can draw up that kind of formula, and that's going to help Caleb Williams, become the kind of quarterback that we all hope he can be.
It is one of those things that Saquon Barkley's performance over the past season has really helped the stock of Ashton Jeanty. And it's not like the old days where it's like, hey, you're now getting paid out for your slot. Not so much of like, hey, you're a bonus guy. Quarterbacks get a $600 million bonus or whatever it was back in the day. Now everything's slotted and everything. But still, I think a lot of the interest for Ashton Jeanty is not only is he a great player, he really is, but over the last number of years with anybody figuring like any random running back is a good running back, Saquon Barkley put the running back position back in vogue, which is great for Ashton Jeanty. And I would suggest to anybody, whether he lands with the Chicago Bears or not, you should be purchasing Ashton Jeanty trading cards at some point after the draft. And the best place to do that is at Windy City Sports Cards. That's right. At Windy City Sports Cards, we specialize in everything, all Chicago sports. Whether you are a diehard fan of the Bears, Bulls, Cubs, White Sox, Blackhawks, Sky, Fire, we've got you covered with an extensive selection of sports memorabilia and collectibles. And in addition to our Chicago-focused items, we have a wide variety of other teams and other players and other sports. So whoever you love in this NFL draft, everybody knows that I love Mason Graham. Now, Mason Graham's cards will probably never be that of what an offensive skill player is. But if you love Matthew Golden or Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, go out there, get the cards. Windy City Sports Cards has you covered. They don't have to be a member of the Bears to make this a great financial windfall for you. I do also want to say, too, while I'm plugging things here, if you go to NFL.com/IQ, this is a brand new thing from our team that has brought you Next Gen Stats. This is a draft cheat sheet, and you can go to, don't do it now. Actually, bring it up. You're watching this. If you can bring up dual screens, listen to me. You can listen to the show and check out NFL.com/IQ. It's a really cool thing. It's a great cheat sheet. For instance, you can look at like the top picks, and it'll help. It's kind of like they kind of pattern it after fantasy football drafts. So it's a really cool thing. It's like got the Bears draft needs for instance. They have the Bears draft targets. Ashton Jeanty, Mason Graham, Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks Jr., Ty Warren, Mikael Williams, and Shamar Stewart. They put Shamar Stewart in there. They did not put Omar Hampton, but that's okay. But I want to ask you, I want to go back to Chubbs82, who chimed in a moment ago, and I'm glad they did, who said trade up for Abdul Carter. This is the thing. Would you be upset if the Bears did make a move? Let's say, I don't know what would have to fall and who goes where. Trading up for Abdul Carter, because I think most people would agree that Abdul Carter is the best player in this draft. Would it feel like a consolation prize if we ended up with somebody even like Abdul Carter?
No, not at all. And then I can go right back to my trench drunk. So that would fit right in line. I think it's probably pretty close between Ashton Jeanty and Abdul Carter, who's the best player in this draft, but he's certainly the best defensive player. There's no question about that. Yeah, you bring in this guy, have him opposite of Montez Sweat, and look at the additions they've made with Grady Jarrett and Dio Dangbo. Now all of a sudden you've got a rotation of defensive linemen that can keep coming at you because you've still got Andrew Billings, Jervon Dexter. You can rotate some guys in and out that have the ability to kind of move around that defensive line as well. So I would be for that, but you'd have to tell me the price tag again. I'm actually more interested if they're going to trade up to 3. I'm actually more intrigued by giving up next year's equity than this year's, because I think it would be really cool if the Bears could do something like that, but not have to take a hit in what they have in the second or third round. You have the 39th and 41st pick, and then obviously number 72 in the third round, but that 39 and 41, that's in this year's draft to have 3 picks in the top 40, essentially, that to me is extremely valuable. And yeah, you could move up and lose that, but then how are you bolstering the rest of your roster? How are you getting that running back? How are you getting that offensive lineman? If you only have to lose 1 second-round pick, then maybe that's a different conversation, because let's not forget that one of those second-round picks is from the Carolina Panthers. Yeah. So whether it's Abdul Carter or Ashton Jeanty that they're trying to trade up for, if I were to tell you 3 years ago and we took a time machine and I could tell you, hey, you can have Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, and Ashton Jeanty or Ashton Jeanty or Abdul Carter as that 5th player for Bryce Young, would you take it? Every fan would. So that's what I mean. If you're going to trade up, it's got to be for a game changer, a game wrecker. And I do believe both these guys that we've talked about so far fall under that jurisdiction, to where, yes, you're going to be maybe perturbed as a fan because you don't like giving up draft equity, but you should be able to stomach it because of the blue chip talent that's coming to your roster. The Bears need game wreckers and game changers. They don't have enough of them. So to get one would be a huge get for Ryan Poles and the Bears.
But also you think about last year as well, the Bears were tempted, or I should say Ryan Poles was tempted to move up for Roma Dunze. Ian Cunningham was able to talk him off the ledge and be like, we probably don't really need to do that, because there's so many weird things that can happen in the draft. And I understand there's a real possibility we don't end up with Ashton Jeanty or Abdul Carter. I mean, let's be realistic. However, and I say this too, and I know that people accuse me of being a homer, but it's like, I don't think Mason Graham, again, because I'm trying to breathe this into fruition. I'm like, I don't think it's that outlandish that he lands to the Bears at 10, because again, you would everybody just assumes for whatever reason that the Jags are taking, and I'm like, why would the Jags take him? Of all the teams that need offensive firepower, now they obviously don't need Ashton Jeanty because I feel like their 2 running backs equated themselves pretty well, but they need a receiver, they need another receiver, and they need a tight end. The guys they signed are not going to cut it. And Evan Ingram was really good in that offense. Right. I know it's going to be Liam Cohen's offense now, but Liam Cohen was able to make use of the guys that just the journeyman that he had in Tampa Bay. If he had a real talent like Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, that makes a lot of sense. The Jets, the Panthers, those are two teams that, like, you need offensive firepower. You should be looking at Ted McMillan and Matthew Golden and Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren. And then the teams, like, there's also teams that need quarterbacks. So where we thought last year that Michael Penix was not going to go in the top 10, like, it was a question whether he's going to go in the first round or not.
Right.
So I think with so many things that could happen in the NFL draft, as gutting as it would be to miss out on Ashton Jeanty, I feel like we get a really good player at 10. We keep on, I'm usually the guy's like bleep draft capital because it's a crapshoot. But I think when you have that much firepower going into this draft, I think it's too much for me to ask to give it up.
Well, and I think the biggest question is when you talk about the Jags roster needs is if the Bears are thinking about trading up, then that means they think their roster is pretty close. And then the question is, do you agree with that? Like, is this roster so close that you can give up draft equity because you have not just starter quality across your roster, but depth behind them? And honestly, I think if we take the meatball hat off, I think it's fair to say that they're not there yet. And if the Bears do think they're there, I don't know. I think that might be the same mistake they made last year, thinking they could get by with the offensive line they tried to put out there.
Yeah.
And you've been a big advocate for a while, like, hey, don't just get one guy at a certain position, double down, get more. And so you could say, okay, we've checked all these boxes. We've got Jonah Jackson, check, right guard. We got Drew Dahlman, check, center. We got, obviously Joe Thuney at left guard, all pro, check. And we're checking all these boxes. Well, that's not etched in stone for a 17-game season, right? So if you stay at 10 or you trade back, I know Peter Schrager, your guy, right? He had a situation where the Bears trade back and still draft Kelvin Banks, I believe.
Yeah.
So now there you go. When you talk about doubling down on a position group, so you have that depth behind it. Now you've added another pick. Now you go to the second round and the third round and you add more depth. I know there's some people in the chat that would advocate for that. And I think that is the smart pathway. That is the smart pathway and arguably the more exciting pathway. But some of these scenarios we talked about earlier are also exciting. So I don't know. I mean, we're fans, man. I mean, we cover the teams, we cover the NFL, we cover the Bears. But at the end of the day, I'm a fan. I always have been. I bleed for this team. And it's going to be really hard for me to not be fired up here these next few days because, hey, we're still in the honeymoon phase of the Ben Johnson era. So it's hard for me to sit here and be negative to whatever vision they have because you cannot trust Ryan Poles all you want because of some of the mistakes he's made in the past. But now are you not trusting Ben Johnson, 3-4 months into his coaching tenure? I'm still trusting Ben mode. He hasn't done anything to earn or have me not trust him. So I don't know. That's kind of where I stand right now.
Can we go to Mike Houston's comment from 327? He might have used a couple of naughty words, but he's talking about like filling in with depth. If you see the one, maybe I can highlight it. I don't have the ability to do it. Is he saying naughty words, Sammy? I don't know. Mike Houston's very active in the chat, and I appreciate him. But he's right. He's like, you know what? We still need depth on the offensive and defensive line. Here it is. It's not close. We need a left tackle. We need a backup at the line. We need a damn pass rush. Why are we going damn running back? I see Mike's fired up, and I love it. And
where is that damn tour guide?
Mike's fired up, and he's ready to go. And so here's the one thing. Last year, we talked about this last year when we were talking ourselves into Roma Dunze. And we said, just because we signed Keenan Allen, we don't need to pretend like we're done filling the position. That would have been the old Bears mentality of, hey, like we signed Keenan Allen. Why do we need to draft a wide receiver? We're set. Obviously, we weren't. It's a good thing that we've got Roma Dunze. And even though there was discussed on Tuesday that Joe Thuney could get a contract extension, I would still like, and I think Jonah has been extended as well, is like, I would still like to have the flexibility of having more people out there to challenge people, and if we want to bring in somebody who is going to challenge Braxton Jones, you do it with I say you do it with the first round pick, like a number 10 guy who's a left tackle. Like, oh, that's a message to Braxton Jones to get it together and figure out where we're going to go from here, where the best guy is going to play. So I love Tyler Warren and I love Ashton Jeanty, but it's like, you know what, we still, and I keep defaulting to Mason Graham too, but it's like, I feel like the trenches are still the way to go.
Yeah. I mean, that's the meat and potatoes route. And I think that they should stick with that. But here's the issue. I think initially they probably were in love with Will Campbell. Well, the rest of the league also fell in love with Will Campbell, and now it seems like he's not even going to come close to 10. He still might. I mean, it's lying season. This is like, in most years, you can at least marker in like 4 of the 10 picks. This year, like all 10 picks, except for number 1. So every pick after 1, it's not there really isn't a definitive conclusion. So you could say, yeah, they need trenches, but what if Will Campbell, Armand Membu, and Kelvin Banks are all off the board? Yeah. Right? And so that's kind of the situation they've fallen themselves. Now you can go defensive line, but as I said earlier, the number 1 priority for this team is Caleb Williams and getting him to develop into a great quarterback and the best quarterback to ever play in franchise history. So you have to do everything you can to put something into that offense. Give Ben Johnson another asset, another weapon. And so you can talk about defensive line, and defense certainly helps the offense. It's all connected. I understand that. But at the same time, you got to try to see what you can do to help Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams first and foremost. So to me, if it's offensive line and it's not there, then you are looking at those skill position players. And if you are thinking about trading up or you're against it, I would point to what you saw last year with Ryan Poles trying to trade up last year for Rome Odunze, and they showed that in the 1920 football drive, video. So, I think Ryan, once he's got his eyes on something, he's going to go for it. So I'm excited. Today has been so much more fun than last year. Do you remember the day before the draft last year? The Bears held a press conference of showing how the Bears were going to be in Chicago. And anybody with a brain knew that was a farce and they were not going to do that. And for whatever reason, they did this dog and pony show the day before they're going to draft Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. So we didn't even get a day like today where we could preview the draft, enjoy it. We've come so far, 3 months of this. The last month, we're basically just banging our head against the wall. But today has actually been a lot of fun. And all of it might just be smoke. But that's what the NFL is. It's fun. This conversation and getting your wheels turning a little bit. That's what makes this sport great and why the offseason is just as exciting as the regular season in some ways.
No, and it's so true. And again, there's it was such a fait accompli last year. We knew it was going to be Caleb Williams and all this stuff, and anything else was ridiculous. The one thing though that's interesting about this year is I'm pretty safe in saying sorry. I keep watching my boy just running around. He hasn't stopped. How long's this show been going on? He has not stopped playing baseball imaginarily.
Yeah. And does he got the lineup card? That's the big question. Is he batting different, and is he batting lefty for different players?
Not yet. He hasn't developed that skill yet. He has not.
Okay.
He has not done that yet, but I think that's soon because he has taken some swings off the tee left-handed. And I actually like his left-handed stroke, but that's a story for another day. The biggest issue for me, or the biggest thing, the most intriguing thing for me right now is the Cleveland Browns. And we should have brought on, I wish I would have thought of this before because it could have brought on Andy McNamara, who does the Sick Podcast Cleveland. By the way, tune in for that tomorrow because as much as I'm excited for our own draft prospects, Andy McNamara is going to be breaking down the Browns draft. And the best part about it for the Browns is we have no idea. There are so many different ways they can go. As a matter of fact, going to NFL.com/IQ, I'm looking at it right now. The Browns team needs, as listed, according to NFL.com, are quarterback, offensive line, edge, running back, and safety. And Malachi Starks is probably not going number 2. But when you think of this, Shedeur Sanders, they need a quarterback. Shedeur Sanders likely available. They need offensive line. Will Campbell, Membu, all those guys gonna be available to them. The edge rusher, Abdul Carter, is going to be available to him. And the one team that folks just you never see this, but I keep now, and again, this lends itself to like the draft process just being way too long. The Browns could need a running back. What if the Browns have decided, like, you know what, we really need Ashton Jeanty? We have Joe Flacco. Let's get Ashton Jeanty and let him go out. Like, they could do it. That to me, and like that will set off a chain reaction. Because if Jeanty goes there, then like all these, now maybe there's other teams that are like, like teams like the Patriots are like, well, there goes our idea of trading. And the Giants are going to end up getting locked into somebody. Do they go Abdul Carter, or do they go another? Do they take not Shedeur Sanders, but Travis Hunter? I think we're overlooking the wild card of what the Browns do, because there is not a consensus pick for them right now.
Well, it sounds like their consensus should be to trade back. If you have that many needs, that trading back might be what they should do. And how many teams are trying to trade up right now for either Jeanty or Abdul Carter? Well, why don't you usher that in for us? Why
don't we do that? What if we did some sort of, like, if this was the movie Draft Day, where the Bears traded up to number 2, but then they deked the Giants into swapping 2 to 3 and getting our picks back, and then moving around all over these other places, and then be like, hey, here we go. We ended up with the guy we wanted anyways, and 6 additional picks. Hey, what is Berlissimo saying here? Bring him up real quick.
Our guy
Berlissimo, please, dear Poles who aren't in Hallis Hall, don't trade up. I feel, that's where I'm heading, but there's so many interesting things. I think the Browns trading down could be a thing, as long as it's not with the Bears, because I don't want to know the price of going from 2 to 10. That's
next year's first round pick and one of your second round picks this year.
Can't do it. For number 2?
Yes, you can do it.
No, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't go through the thing of like, well, we're going to win at least 12 games.
That's exactly right. That you took my next thought, and I'm not going to hype up this team, but they're going to be picking like 27, 31, 2, and so you don't even worry about that. Although I will say that last year at this time, I said that our first round pick next year wouldn't be in the top 10, and it's 10.
You were so close.
Yeah, I was.
So close. Hey, if it wasn't for the Fail Mary, you would have been absolutely correct. But then we'd probably still have Eberflus. So I don't know. That's always the thing too. Like, the
butterfly effect. Yeah.
Looking back in hindsight. Oh, every time I go onto a new podcast who I've never been on before, or somebody, hey, like, let's talk. And everybody always wants to bring up that play. It's like, it's in the past now, but you're not going to hurt me with it because it worked out perfectly for us.
It helped us.
Yeah. Oh, Matt Nagy's in the chat. Bears trading up for number 2 gives me Mitch Trubisky flashback. That's the thing. Thank you, Matt. I agree. We should never trade up for the number, just on principle.
Yeah.
Never trade up for number 2 ever again. Can never do. We'll stick at 3. We'll do whatever. That is a butterfly effect that is just.
And Jake Flanagan, our leader of CHGO, he wants Travis Hunter, and that's nobody. No, when you talk about the Bears trading up, nobody's bringing his name up except for Jake. Jake is all over Travis Hunter, and hey, if you get him, you fill 2 positions.
That's the one. That's the one.
Wide receiver and DB.
Carmen Vitale was talking about this of hipster picks, where people look at the draft and they're like, who haven't we talked about to the Bears? And outside of the quarterbacks, because that's just dumb and only haters would bring that up. But Travis Hunter is the guy of like all the dudes. Even if I look at like NFL draft IQ and it has like, hey, who can the Bears take? Like, who would be a huge get for them? Like, Travis Hunter isn't even listed. Again, it's Jeanty, Mason Graham, and they put Mason Graham there just to be polite to me. Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, Membu, Tyler Warren, Shamar Stewart. Like, nobody even brings up Travis Hunter, but I don't know. Play both ways. What do you think? Can you think Travis Hunter could play both ways in the NFL? I say, the Angels were the team that allowed Shohei Ohtani to pitch and hit, even though it cost him 2 Tommy John surgeries during his career. But I want somebody to let Travis Hunter do that.
Yeah.
I want him to give it a go.
Why not? Especially while he's young. I mean, that's the whole point of drafting a guy like that. He's special. And you don't take his special away from him. You don't just make him a receiver. Don't just make him a DB. Maybe you have to consider a snap count on one side of the ball or the other. My instinct initially was to say, make him a full-time DB and then have a package of plays where he's your third wide receiver, where he's not like having to, have as much responsibility as their number one wide receiver. But then talking with some of my guys from DNVR who cover the Buffaloes and are as close to the whole situation with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter and Dion and that whole program, they said that they believe, it's better to have him as a full-time wide receiver because he is great with the ball in his hands. And as a DB, quarterbacks can throw away from you. They can determine whether or not you're going to get the ball in your hand. Whereas as a wide receiver, it's on the offense to decide how many times he gets the ball in his hand. So that made a lot of sense to me there. But ultimately, I'm having him play both sides of the ball either way, no matter what, because you don't take special from guys like that.
I want to have the thing similar like, hey, Ryan Fitzpatrick played at Harvard. Tony Gonzalez played basketball. Antonio Gates played basketball. Anytime that Travis Hunter's on the field and the team switch sides, like, oh, look, Travis Hunter doesn't even get off the field. He's going to be, although he will be out, unless I guess it would mostly be a turnover on downs for that to happen. But like that whole thing of like, oh, whoa, he's still out there. He hasn't left the field. That specter would be cool. It kind of like, it reminds me back when I was a kid, and you're probably not old enough to remember this, but the Cowboys had a quarterback named Danny White, who was their backup quarterback. And then he was their starting quarterback at some point, because they would always do the thing on 4th down. Danny White would still be on the field like, oh, we don't know. Danny White, is he punting? It's 4th and 19, Pat Summerall. They're punting the football. Don't play this game with me. Oh, what's he doing out there? Yeah, actually, he was the quarterback for the Cowboys in 85 when we beat them 44-0 in Dallas. I still have a theory about that too, because I went to because I was living in Southern California. I went to the divisional playoff game between the Rams and the Cowboys in 85. The Bears they beat the Giants that year in that round. And I was at this Rams and Cowboys game. I swear to God, the Cowboys had no interest in playing football. Almost like, you know what? We don't want to play the Bears. Like, we're good. You go ahead, Rams. You guys go. Eric Dickerson ran for like 500 yards. It was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. Like, I've never seen a team like, and I would go to like watch Long Beach State play BYU. I'm like, this is a more atrocious run over than I've ever seen. That Cowboys team absolutely did not want. And I remember my dad be like, yeah, Tom Landry doesn't want to go see. He was like, Tom Landry, my dad was sitting there. It's like, Tom Landry doesn't want to face Mike Ditka, so his team's not playing well. Like, I'm like, okay, Dad, now you're pissing off the Cowboy fans. Like, please, don't upset them. They're having a bad day. But in any event, I'm off track. Danny White, Travis Hunter should play both ways.
I was going to say, when it comes to smack talking, I was talking to Shane Marsaw, and he was like, oh, I'm surprised I didn't get a text from you last night with the Cubs come from behind win, down 10-7, winning extras. And I was like, I'm not jinxing anything right now. The Cubs are doing good. I'm not going to ruin it by opening my big mouth and talking smack in April. It's not happening.
No, we're not doing that. That's way too early for that. Shout out to Ian Gillis talking about the Anaheim Rams back in the day. Them and the Angels played in the same stadium. Nobody even remembers that, except unless you lived out here. How about are there some other questions that we need to go out to? If not, yeah, there we go. Ninos knows, is Jeanty greater than Jalen Walker and Trey Henderson combined? That's probably what we can get with the draft capital needed to move up. Yeah, if Jalen Walker is still there, that's interesting. Again, because you never know, but I do agree with you with Trey. I think he's a good player. And I think I'm not saying he's better than Ashton Jeanty, but I think, again, the totality of having a number of good players outweighs moving up for Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, I mean, the sum of the parts is, what has the expression go? The sum of the parts is greater than the whole or something like that.
Yeah.
I never get expressions right, so I'm sure that's wrong too. But at the same time, I know people are trying to sell me on the idea that, it's fine if they don't get Ashton Jeanty because they could just get Travion Henderson. But I don't view Travion Henderson as the next Jahmyr Gibbs. And I'm not saying anyone is necessarily saying that, but at the same time, there is, I don't know if people quite really understand the gap between Ashton Jeanty and the rest of the running back class. Now there's 20 solid ones. So yes, I will concede that one of these guys will probably end up, we made the comparison maybe a month ago where there was teams that took Christian McCaffrey in the 2019 draft and Alvin Kamara and a few other really good running backs, Aaron Jones and other guys went in the second and third round. Right. And so I get that. I get this whole idea. And I will concede that someone out of the rest of this pack probably will elevate himself to a level of really great running back. Will he touch where Ashton Jeanty could potentially go? I guess it depends on where Ashton Jeanty ends up. But, I think people need to understand that there is a gap between Ashton and the rest of us, even though there are a lot of running backs. And saying Travion Henderson, to me, he just seems like a role player. A good role player, a guy that, can bring some speed and versatility. I've seen his cut-ups of the way he pass protects. He does a really good job with pass protection. So, he's somebody you certainly can use, but is he a game changer? And that's what I'm asking. When you say, when Nino Snows says, is it better than Jalen Walker and Travion Henderson? Well, how many game changers did you just mention? I think maybe one with Jalen Walker. So that's one game changer versus another game changer and a role player next to him. I'm looking at game changers.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that too. And again, it's why I wouldn't be opposed to the Bears taking him at 10. It's just trading up for him is where I got to draw the line and where I got to say, you know what, that's tough. It's kind of like when I tell my kids we can't go to Knott's Berry Farm during the week. If it was the weekend and you want to stay here till 9 p.m., that's fine. But we got school tomorrow. We gotta maintain ourselves. And again, and this goes back to the whole thing too about what we're doing, building an organization. Remember when the Lions got Jahmyr Gibbs and they got whoever the Campbell, they traded down. They were the number 6 pick, and then they were still able to do that. Now, obviously, that's not likely going to be possible with Ashton Jeanty because it feels like there's too many teams. There's too many teams excited about him, but at the same time, at the peak of lying season, why do we think that all these teams are going after Ashton Jeanty? Because, the more I thought about it, and the Raiders had a press conference with the GM and Pete Carroll. They talked about how much they love running the football. They talked about all this. They really drummed up how much they love running backs. We got to run the ball. We got to have a great running back. It's well, then they're trying to get the Bears to jump up. Right. They're trying to get some team to jump in front of them and take Ashton Jeanty because they want somebody else to fall. So you got to be really careful about that. And how many of these teams, because really I mean, I say the Giants jokingly, not jokingly, but like the Browns, I think, honestly, the Browns have so many needs. I think Abdul Carter is too much to pass up. The Giants, if they want their fans to love again, they would do it, but they probably won't. The Jags are fine. The Patriots probably not. They need offensive line help for sure. There's also the Jags at 5 are not going to do it. I forget who's at 6. The Jets aren't going to do it because they have Breece Hall. The Saints could do it, but it would feel weird because, like, bro, Saints need a lot of work. There's a lot of things that need to go on. I truly believe that there's a possibility that Ashton Jeanty falls because the Raiders are just trying to dupe us into doing something because they're pissed about Ben Johnson. I just figured it out. Yeah, they're pissed about the Ben Johnson thing. So they're trying to make the Bears give up all their draft capital to move ahead of them. They're going to be like, we didn't want Ashton Jeanty anyways. We're taking Mason Graham or we're taking Will Johnson or whatever, because they actually got to go defense. So I think I just think we got to stay put. Can we all agree? Can we all agree that we should stay put? Let's talk Greg.
I will say it's the smartest of all the different scenarios we're breaking down. Staying put is smartest.
Yeah.
But then you have to tell me who's there, because then I'd like to potentially trade back if the guys that I want aren't there. Because I believe if we trade back, we might still be able to get the guy that we wanted, even if we had to stay at 10. That because then trading back might become the smartest over staying at 10, depending on who's still there. So that's what's exciting. I mean, when you say, that's what I'm saying. Like, the Browns have 7 different ways they can go with this. So do the Bears. So do X amount of other teams in the top 10. And so it's really exciting, and it's hard to say exactly which way the Bears are going to go. It's easy for me to say I don't know. I know a lot of people kind of feel like they know exactly what the Bears should do, but I don't.
No, there's another good comment that just came through. Somebody talking about the Broncos moving up into the top 10. So the Raiders did pass on him, and maybe they're trying to also dupe the Broncos into giving up a lot of capital. There it is, Matthew Brown. Thank you so much for weighing in. Yeah, the Broncos could be. Actually, if Ashton Jeanty was there at 9, and I was the New Orleans Saints, it would be a pretty big drop to go down to 21. But where I think the Broncos are in the 20s. That would be a big drop, but I think the Saints should really, like, you would have to consider that. If you're the Saints, you're like, yeah, maybe we drop out of it, because you certainly don't need Ashton Jeanty. You need more help. You need a quarterback too. The 21 is Pittsburgh, so the Browns have got it, and the Broncos are going to be like 24. So there's a possibility for that too. I just think again, it's fun to speculate, but I think at the same time with Ashton Jeanty, I think too, and I mentioned this at the top of the show, is that a lot of people are sold on Ashton Jeanty, and I put this out of my Instagram today. The choice between Jeanty and Tyler Warren, I don't know if it was just because it was those two guys, but if Jeanty's gone, what are your thoughts? And I know that you're close with Cole Kmet. Not that you can't play 12 personnel. How would you feel about Tyler Warren? Like, we sit here and we're talking about Ashton Jeanty, game changer, makes your team an impact player. Is Tyler Warren in that same category for you?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm probably going to jinx this because I've already said it on our show today on CHGO Bears. So I'm sure the more I say this, the more likelihood that the Bears are going to draft Tyler Warren. So I would not be a fan of it. I just think that when you look at all the options the Bears have, from running back to O-line to D-line to Jalen Walker, there's D tackle, edge, which way you want to go with this. Tight end falls to 7th on my priority list. And just like running backs, this is a deep tight end class. And if you really want another tight end, you don't have to get him with the 10th pick. And if you are going to take that kind of tight end, then it better be in a trade back where you're adding more draft equity. It's not about my love for Cole Kmet. I just don't think that it would, and it would make me nervous. He's not Brock Bowers. So I know that's shocking. I know. And that's a really strong statement I just made. But if you're going to draft a tight end in the top 10, he's got to have that kind of level of production. He's got to be a Rob Gronkowski type. I know that's lofty and sounds ridiculous to say. Well, so is drafting a tight end in the top 10.
Yeah.
You could say, oh, well, so is drafting a running back in the top 10. Guess how many teams in the top 6 of top rushing teams in the league made the playoffs? All 6. So I think the league is starting to circle back to teams that run the ball well have the most success winning football games. I don't know how much a tight end there, unless you're Brock Bowers, unless you're George Kittle, unless you're Travis Kelce or Rob Gronkowski. And I just don't know if he can meet that level of expectation, on top of the fact that I wouldn't draft a tight end that high. So that's where I get nervous with Tyler Warren. And that being said is why they're going to draft Tyler Warren tomorrow. And now you have this and we can clip it and everyone's just going to hold this against me for the rest of my life. And then he might end up being a great player. And then I'll just have to wear this forever, like a scarlet letter.
No, for sure. But like the more this goes on, and of course I was advising the Jags to take Tyler Warren. I actually like Colson Loveland more. I think he's I think he's going to end up being a better pro. And I think he's going to end up being a really good receiver. He played for a team that didn't throw the ball a ton, giving him an opportunity to go out there. Kind of like, when George Kittle was at Iowa, like it's not like they have a prolific passing offense, but I do like him as a receiver. But one guy that I'm very interested in is Mason Taylor, who could end up being available in the second round. Now, if there's a run on tight ends and 2 guys go in the top 10 or top 12 or whatever, and the Chargers have not been able to address, you also have Elijah Arroyo as a possibility as well. But Mason Taylor, to me, is somebody who stands out as somebody who could go out there. He plays all 3 downs. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. He had a breakout season in 2024. That if the Bears are convinced that they do need to add another tight end, that would be another way to go too, which means to me, you would not want to go out there and use the number 10 overall pick for a guy. Can we bring up Bellissimo's post real quick? Son of a gun. Yeah. So sorry to be, for those of you who have not heard, it was announced earlier today that Steve Mongo McMichael was moving to hospice care. It's been about a 4-year journey. If I remember the timeline correctly, about 4 years ago, he was diagnosed with ALS. And since that time, he's been battling the disease bravely with a lot of support from not only the members of the Chicago Bears, but the Bears, Bears fans in general. One of the funniest things too, like my dad loved Steve Mongo McMichael. It was one of his favorite players. And I do remember too, just like all these things, like those kind of players always stuck out for a lot of Chicago Bears fans because he felt like he was a member, like he truly was a member of the community. And even though he went to Green Bay and he says he stole their money, which I totally believe. That's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, man. He had an impact on a lot of us in a big way. I obviously wasn't old enough for the 85 Bears and the legend that team continues to live with. But at the same time, his legend will live forever when you consider everything he did from the landscape of the NFL all the way to wrestling, yes. the four horsemen. I mean, my years in the 90s consisted of Michael Jordan in the living room and Monday Night Wars between WWF and WCW, and Steve Mongo McMichael and WCW just being this just rocket ship in the Four Horsemen with Ric Flair. And it was, for me, that I will always, like, for me, those are cherishable memories for me as well. So that's kind of to try to put it in perspective for people. Like, he was otherworldly, like a whole nother stratosphere of personality and famous. And that was what made the 85 Bears special, but that's what made him special. And then I'll never forget the moment where he's singing the 7th inning stretch at the Cubs game and he calls out the umpire because he had a bad
Angel
call.
Hernandez. Oh,
Yeah,
it had to be
Angel
Angel
Hernandez.
Hernandez.
I'm going to talk with him after the game. Like, that's like one of the most legendary Wrigley Field moments. So there it is, like in the wrestling ring, in the booth, singing the stretch, or on the field dominating, winning Super Bowls. Steve Mongo McMichael had an impact that just crossed totally a whole nother, hemispheres.
Yeah, he was such a goofball too, because like in the early days before he joined the Four Horsemen, he was on the announcing team for WCW, and he would sit there, and he had this little Doberman with him, and it was always like it just like why does he have the miniature Doberman for whatever? Like Steve, why does Steve Mongo McMichael have this little dog with him and all this stuff? And I remember one of my friends who was so thrilled that like one of the pay-per-views was at MGM one year, and he was walking. He's like, I was in the hotel lobby. He's like, I saw Steve Mongo McMichael, and I threw up the Four Horsemen, and he threw it back. Like just dumb things like that just stick into your mind about how just how he interacted with everybody and how great of a football player he was too. Like you just think back to that 85 Bears team, and I trying to equate it like for a team like the Patriots were a dynasty. But like, were the Patriots fun? Like, no, like nobody really enjoyed the Patriots, and I like the 49ers of the 80s. Did people really like, I don't know. I know in my household, my dad did not enjoy the 49ers. Hated them. Actually, my dad always hated San Francisco more than he hated Green Bay. Like he was like, yeah, Green Bay sucks. He's like, the 49ers are the team that's actually good, that's beating us, and them in Washington, the teams that actually are beating us. I don't remember those teams being fun. I mean, like the Washington teams of those era kind of were, I think, because they had the Hogs and they had John Riggins and they had some interesting personalities as well. They had the fun bunch. But like them and the Bears were like fun parts of football. Like that was, and I always say this tongue in cheek, but like whenever you talk about the modern version of the NFL, like, hey, when did the NFL really take off? I truly believe that a big reason why the NFL gained in popularity in the 80s was because of the 85 Bears, because they stepped out of the norm of like just a football, of what you thought a football team was like and who they were. And they had all these great engaging personalities. And we saw people before, like Jim Brown became an actor. And so Terry Bradshaw did a great job of that too. Maybe the Steelers were fun, because Terry Bradshaw was cool because he was in a lot of great movies. Or at least what I thought were great movies when I was growing up. But yeah, McMichael was a huge part of that. And so it's been tough, watching him fight the good fight against ALS and everything. And thank God too. And this is the thing too, that really upsets me about Hall of Fames and things like that is like Ken Stabler is in the Hall of Fame, but he was not alive when he was inducted. Like, you knew he was a Hall of Fame player and he was going to be there, and he didn't get to enjoy it, and he didn't get his moment in Canton. And in some respects, Steve didn't as well, but he was still alive when he was there and was able to get into the Hall of Fame where he deserved, where he knew he was going to belong. So that part of it, I'm very sad right now, but I'm happy that he got to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at going back to baseball, Ron Santo didn't get his flowers until after he passed away. That's a sports tragedy to send someone to how bad Ron Santo wanted to get into the Hall of Fame. Yeah. And then they wait until after he passes away to put him in. I mean, that's a tragedy. And luckily, Steve Mongo McMichael, to his credit, because this could have happened to Steve if not for that burning desire to stick it out and stay alive through that process. And, they like that I think speaks to, or is a testament to the strength that, the inner strength that Steve Mongo McMichael's possessed. So I think all of us and his family are probably, very grateful for these last few years, even as hard as they were, because he got to get his flowers the right way, and his teammates and friends and family got the proper goodbyes. I mean, how many times do you go and visit a guy, right? If somebody were to unexpectedly pass away, you may not get that opportunity to see him, but because Steve was, in the condition he was in, and because Steve got into the Hall of Fame, then everybody kind of came to his house and rejoiced and were able to see him. And I'm sure that gave him great joy. And, so I think those are the things that should be focused on today.
Yeah, a great legacy, and one that we'll be remembering over the next couple of weeks and days. And, with the draft coming up, it'll be a good time to remember Steve McMichael and everything he meant to not only the Chicago Bears, but the city of Chicago, to wrestling fans, to fans of entertainment or whatever. It is sad news to report that Steve McMichael has passed away, but we're lucky to have had him while we did, and thankful he was able to get into the Hall of Fame. And listen, I think we're just going to end it right here. While I can still talk. But it's thanks to everybody for being here. We still, and it's, we still got this great celebration. And I know he would want us to sit here and focus on the Bears. He just cares. He was caring about who the Bears are going to be drafting. So as we go on now, just remember, like, Steve would have been with us on this too. Like, who should we pick? He probably would have been defensive line if I know him the way that I do. I would imagine he would want us to go to the defensive line. And I think maybe that's why I get so, like, whenever I think of Mason Graham, and I think of a guy who you're like, he is such, like, just watching him play, you're just like, you know what, this guy looks like he could be a Chicago Bear. Or the guy from Oregon, I think it's Derek. I know his last name's Harmon. Is it Derek Harmon? Yeah, like, that's another guy that I look at. And again, like, when you're talking about, like, who could be available in the second round, you're like, oh, these are the kind of guys. These are such difference makers. And getting trench drunk once again, like, that was what made the Bears, like, the 85 Bears. Listen, we love Walter Payton and Jim McMahon, Willie Gault, and all those guys, but those defensive and offensive lines had such studs up and down the lines. Like, it's hard for me to get off that, Greg.
Well, and then I also will add, when it comes to Steve, who I guarantee would also want to continue to bolster the trenches. I've gone to a bunch of autograph events, and I've worked for an autograph company that holds events. People come and hang out, and Steve Mongo McMichael would do the event and then hang out afterwards with everybody. Like, there's other guys that would go out the back door and they got to catch their flight or whatever. No hard feelings. But Steve would just hang out. He'd sign everything, take all the pictures, and then he'd keep doing that with people as he's, hanging out, watching the game with everybody else. So when you talk about the people's champ or a man of the people, that is exactly who Steve Mongo McMichael embodied. And he did that with everything we just said, of this being this otherworldly personality in the sports scene. So, I think, for fans, you're always going to remember, I don't personally hold it against any player that wants to have their own, privacy. They're not going to put themselves out to people because there's a lot of people pulling at them. Yeah. But I will always remember the players or the, athletes that we look up to, and the ones that did give you that time. And Steve was right at the top of the list of people that would do that.
Yeah, that's what makes I'm with you 100%. Like, when I see people, I don't want to call anybody out because I don't want people to think he was, like, rude or anything. But, like, I've met players, and even rookies or whatever, and you talk to a person, and a lot of times in our position, we're trying to get quotes or do whatever. And then you're like, that guy's quiet. Like, oh, is that guy a jerk? You're like, he's not a jerk. He's not loquacious. He's just not very talkative. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, you could be a person you could be a man of few words. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But it does make you appreciate, and it wasn't like people are not giving you time or whatever, but it does make you appreciate people who do put themselves out there and will be willing to spend some time and have a nice interaction or anything like that. And again, not to take away from anybody. Like I remember, like anybody who reads there was this old columnist for the Las Vegas Review Journal. He had a patch. His name was Norm Clark. And it was like even the smallest things of like passing a guy on an escalator and be like, Norm, what's up? And like having him point to you and be like, hey, that kind of stuff is cool. But again, when somebody is willing to take the time and be like, hey, I want to get to know you, or like, ask you questions or whatever. Like Scott Wolf, Party of Five in the movie Go, who, by the way, Go was better than Pulp Fiction. There you go. There's my terrible movie. There's my terrible movie take that I loved it. Go is probably a better Christmas movie than Die Hard. And if we want to go to another, but like Scott Wolf came in, and you're like, I'm sitting in the room in the makeup room talking, and I was like, oh my God, Scott Wolf's here. It's like, shut up. And it was like, what's wrong with Adam? Why is he not talking? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, Scott Wolf's here. I don't want to. So I did go up and talk to him. Could not have been cooler. Like to the point of like, he's asking questions, we're just having a conversation, and the producer's having to pull him away. You're like, hey, you got to be on TV right now. This is a live show, that type of thing. So when you meet people like that, it really does impact you. And Steve Mongo McMichael was definitely like that. By the way, to the Lions fan, like read the room, Lions fan. Like this is not the night, Don. This is not the night for your shtick. Like you can let it go for one night. Like I love you. Don't ban him, but like give us one night. Be a human being for like 20 minutes. That's all we're asking. Thank you for the levity, because I think I needed that. Now I'm pissed that you're doing your shtick while we're like, hey, like we lost Steve Mongo McMichael. This a-hole still doing his Don Burr thing. But yeah, so I think like that's why we love him, and like that's why like I always, and when I get jerseys, that's why I try never to get current players anymore, because you're like, Steve Mongo McMichael is always going to be a Bears legend. There's never going to be like a thing where it's like, and he won 2 Super Bowls with the 49ers. Like when I bought my kid a Shohei Ohtani City Connect jersey, like, that's, I'm like, you don't want to wear it? She's like, no. But McMichael's always going to be one of us,
Yep, no doubt about it. So it's a tough one for sure. But it's been coming here for a few years, and it was crazy. Honestly, it was crazy that he made it as long as he did, knowing the condition he was in. And I think most people wouldn't have made it very long going through what he did. So I think that's why it's more for me. It's like I don't know if this is the right word to say, but I'm happy for him. I'm happy for his family, because they got to get pushed through and experience the things that he deserved before he inevitably, this day was inevitable for, that nasty disease that, so many have been affected by, and he kind of stared it in the face and in pure Mongo way said, bring it on, and chewed it up and spit it out, and so now he's heading up, but with his head held high. There's no question about it.
Yep, and I'll remember, the ability that the outpouring of support from Bears and wrestling fans, and the Hall of Fame introduction, and the ability to meet and connect with his friends over the course of the last 4 years as he's been battling this. You remember those good times too, and so I think that's what's going to be important moving on. But we have we had a draft, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And so for tomorrow, I know that you guys, where are you going to be tomorrow, Greg?
We are going to be at 115 Bourbon Street in Marionette Park on the south side of Chicago. Anybody that wants to come out, you guys are more than welcome. You can get tickets at the door. You can also get tickets on our website, allchgo.com/events. We're going to be there both Thursday night and Friday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. The whole CHGO Bears crew, Lance Briggs and Corey Wooten will be there as well, and maybe some special guests that'll be jumping in. Unfortunately, I tried to pry Adam there, but I don't think he's going to be in the city. But maybe if we can convince him to take a red eye, maybe we will. You never know. So
I'd have to fly. Yeah, I'd have to fly out tonight. I mean, like there's always direct flights from Long Beach to the south side there at Midway. So never say never, but probably not.
Yeah.
I got training too. My assistant coach has been in France, so I've been running practices by myself. Although tonight we got first touch with a professional coach. She's from Newcastle. I still allow her to help out. No, I'm kidding. But for me, I want to let everybody know too. Tomorrow morning at 10:30, there is a possibility that we're going to have a very special edition of Take It to the Rank, which would actually have a wrestling connection. We will be talking, if this person is able to join us, we'll probably be talking about Steve Mongo McMichael a lot. But keep an eye out for that. I can't announce it quite yet. The I's are not quite dotted. The T's are not quite tossed, but we're very close. It's a near fall, as I should say. So keep an eye out for that. We might actually, and if we do that, then I think we're also going to try to bring by Cynthia Freeland at some point during the day. And then that night, I will be on here. We'll be live streaming after the Bears make their pick to talk about this. Yeah, live following the Bears pick tomorrow night. You better put Mason Graham in the. No, this is great. Love that. We'll be talking about it and all the cool stuff that's going on. And of course, on my channels on Instagram and TikTok, I'll be reacting to some other picks, especially anything that has a fantasy implication. I'll be talking about that at great length as well. So there'll be a wide variety of things that we can cover. But make sure you stay tuned to these channels to see if we have a very special episode of Take It to the Rank tomorrow. I can't give away any more than that, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it's going to come through. So, Greg, thank you for being here tonight. We always appreciate it. Bittersweet evening, but still thankful for your time, and everybody else who chimed in. Really appreciate all of you being here. Even you, Don Burr, even though for one day, you can't be an asshole, but fine. Well, do your thing. You got to do your thing. It honestly makes me feel better. It really does in a weird way. Do you? Much love to all you, to each and every one of you. We do really appreciate you being here. It's been a lot of fun this evening. Again, bittersweet evening, but great things are looking up for the Chicago Bears. And as Steve McMichael would want us to say, bear down, and we'll see you tomorrow.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.